Hey everybody, Justin with Three Geeks Podcast here doing a quick intro for this interview we just had with the Background Noise Comics. Lisa and John are publishing a comic book, a collection of comics from the past year. I think you'll really like it. It's a lot of fun. The conversation is really good. And if you're interested in comics or Kickstarter or anywhere in between, you'll probably find it here. Please take a listen. Thanks. See ya. Hey everybody, Justin with the Three Geeks Podcast Conversation. I have Background Noise comic owners, creators, John and Lisa with us. How are you two doing?
We're good.
Good. I think we're here to talk about your comic book and kind of Background Noise comics in general. So can you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. You want me to go first?
Yeah, you go.
So Background Noise comic is a slice of life diary comic. It's based on our lives. We've been doing it for a bunch of years. We mostly post on Instagram, Webtoon, Medium, Facebook, and what am I missing?
Oh, that's the gist of it.
That's the gist of it.
Just starting on Blue Sky.
Sure.
And we talk about our lives, we talk about our family, we talk about our kids, we talk about being parents, we talk about love, we talk about politics, and we talk about kind of weird stuff too, like ghosts and geeky stuff and
talking cats and all sorts of things. Seasons become characters and robot vacuums become characters and everything becomes a character, but it's based on our real life.
And the idea behind the comic was that John and I, we have day jobs and then we come home at night and we open up our laptops and we sit on the couch and usually with the TV in the background and we try to do something creative. And so this comic is about all the things that are in the background of our lives.
Oh, cool. So if I understand it right, and if I read your Kickstarter and understand what you just told me right, it's an anthology, right? It's a collection of works over the past year or so?
Not an anthology, a collection.
My bad.
Of comics from our first year.
So we have over 1,000 comics that we've done over the last bunch of years. And the first year that we started, we actually did a comic every single day. And we were very religious about it. And those comics were very special. They were kind of how we built our brand. They were how we developed who we wanted to be. And we wanted to gather them together into a book, in part because they're a little bit lost in the archives of Instagram, but also because they really they stood the test of time and they tell a story that we wanted to share with the world.
Sure. That's awesome. So now you did one a day. What does that mean? Like the whole thing was done that day, or did you have like a whole week where you like prepped the next week's stuff?
Every day we did another comic.
Yeah, that other thing you said would have been great. Would have been very smart.
Yeah,
but no, I don't do buffers. I just just seat in my pants, sing it. Yeah.
Well, I mean that's definitely creative. I would have a hard time creating an idea for every single day. Was that a challenge at all? Was half the battle creating an idea, or was it more of just like, hey, we know what we're going to talk about. Let's put it on the paper. Let's draw some cool stuff. You know what I mean?
It was both. I mean, it was hard to come up with an idea every day. Sometimes the idea came out and it just kind of popped in. But to make the idea something that was relevant and funny wasn't always easy. And so that was the part that was difficult. And then to draw it. I mean, when we first started, we had a very simple set. The idea was that we just sat on the couch. You know, we don't have mouths because John didn't want us to have a lot of expression. Why didn't we have mouths?
Because the original concept of the comic was like David Lynch's The Angriest Dog in the World. The picture was never going to change, just what we were saying, dialogue. And so that I wouldn't have to change the mouths and I don't know, as sort of like give it its own unique twist.
Yeah.
I left the mouths off, but eventually, Lisa was like, I'm mad at you in this panel, but my face isn't changing. So I started changing the eyes, and it started, things started changing more and more. We got more ambitious, visually, and in the kinds of things we wanted to talk about. So, it started with us just on the couch, never moving, and now we're all over the place.
Yeah. So initially it was 2 panels, and then it very quickly went to 4 panels, just because we realized we were cramming so much content into those 2 panels to tell the kind of stories that we wanted to tell. So we, like John said, we got ambitious. The stories got a little bigger. The set moved. We moved out off the couch into other parts of our lives.
Was that intimidating to leave the couch then? Like, if you had been there, it's such a comfort zone for like creativity. Was that?
No, it was liberating. It was kind of great. I mean, we sometimes we do the just sitting on the couch comics. Sometimes we go back to them when it's right. But what we learned as we were developing the comic was that the story really has to drive the way the scenario is. So if the story really wants us to be on our bicycles, we're going to be on our bicycles. If the story wants us to be in bed, we're going to be in bed. And honestly, we don't have that many sets. I mean, if you start to think about where you are in your life, you really don't have that many places that you go. And so we have recurring sets. We have the car, we have bed, we have the bicycles, we have walking down the street, we have the front stoop. And then if we go on a trip, then sometimes there are other locations, but a lot of times they're similar. It's like we're on a train, we're in a car, but it's not New York,
Yeah. That's awesome. So forgive me, it feels like a lot of this, it feels very similar to, like, I love Calvin and Hobbes. I love Garfield. I love like the short paneled stories. Like, it feels kind of calling back to that a lot. And I, like, as a kid, that was my favorite thing to do. Like, I was in Boy Scouts, right? I was reading, camping and stuff, and go through a whole like giant collections of comics. That really calls back to, at least to me, right? At least it feels very similar. Is that the right way to think about it? Is that kind of where you're going?
Yeah. My introduction to comics was newspaper comics. Like how Calvin and Hobbes started, and I think you can kind of see like a little bit of Peanuts
For sure.
in the comic, because that's definitely a big inspiration. When I was a kid, I used to buy these little books that collected the Peanuts, little softcover books. And when you're ideally like doing a comic that's going to be updated every day, which was the original plan, you want to keep it simple and small. We've got, like I said, we've gotten more ambitious over time. So now it's not every day. And the drawing is more sophisticated than it was when we started. But those comic strips are, they're a big part of my influence.
Yeah. And did you always have like spots of color in it, or did it start off with black and white, and then as you started to get away from the daily comics, you started adding color? Is that kind of, or is
Lisa's laughing because she knows color is like a sore spot, which is one of the things that we will be working on in the book. I never picked a color palette. And
yeah, exactly.
And it would have been
thank you.
It would have been really smart to pick a color palette and to stick to it. I mean, the basic idea is that we're grayscale and there would be little spots of color. But exactly what the rules were for that were never like clearly ironed out. And we're kind of trying to iron it out more for the book collection. We're recoloring all of them. Picking a color palette and sticking with it. I don't know. It's a weird, like, it's number one, it like kind of turns into a fight because it's like,
you're both very creative people, so you have your own opinions on everything, I'm sure.
It's also like a weird OCD thing for me. It's like, we haven't had a color palette, so we can't now have a color palette. But of course, we should have a color palette.
Yeah.
It's not that I don't want it. It's just this weird, like, compulsion thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. But yes, we are absolutely going to have a color palette, and there are going to be more rules. But basically, the people are grayscale. But there are characters that kind of need some color. There's some of the cats, especially the cat that becomes the main cat, Danny, is orange. There's Spring, who's one of our most popular characters. She's the embodiment of spring. She is grayscale, but she has green hair and flowers in her hair.
Sure.
And we're figuring out Autumn is grayscale, but has colored leaves in her hair, so that stuff is fun, the little spots of color. But
like we said, when we were in that first year, when we were developing the comic and sort of figuring out our brand, we were exploring a little bit. And so some of the things that John was doing from artistic perspective was playing with color a little bit. And some of the comics had a lot more color than others. And, the palette wasn't always the same, which really drove me crazy. I won't lie. But it was part of the process. And now the process is to go back in and, we've kind of come to a decision that we really do want to just keep it grayscale with spot color, which was the initial intention. And we're going to go back and kind of clean up some of those comics. So we also, as we went back, like I said, some of those panels that were 2 panels were very smushed because we were really trying to get a lot of content in there, a lot of dialogue. And we're starting to expand those a little bit and giving everything a little bit of air. So it's all part of the process. And it was an amazing process. To do a comic every day was an incredible learning experience. And that's partly why we have short essays that we wrote that go along with this collection to help people kind of understand what we learned and just how we got there.
Yeah, and for Kickstarters, I'm always curious, what the different tiers of backing, the way it made to decide, because it might be cool to have a director's cut of here's day 1, here's day 365, and here's what changed along the way. You know what I mean?
That's very cool.
A timeline of decisions and stuff. But
that's a great idea.
Yeah. But how did you come up with your different because I'm curious always with Kickstarters, the digital downloads versus the signed copies versus how much thought went into that? I'm assuming a lot, but what made you talk about that, and
well,
how'd you get there?
We really wanted to have a physical book. That was the most important impetus behind having the Kickstarter, to have something that people could hold in their hands, especially since, like we said, it harkens back to the days of newspaper comics. So we really wanted it to have a physical copy. But we also wanted to make sure that if somebody wanted to see the arc of the story, and we wanted to have a lower price point. And we also wanted to be able to share it with people around the world. And once I really started to look into fulfillment, the cost of shipping to China, Japan, those kind of places, it was very high. And so I wanted to make sure that we had something that was a PDF. So if people wanted to have this experience, they could have it and own it on their digital reader. So those were the important things. And then we've been developing a lot of things along the way. For example, we have comic chocolate bars that we made. They're sort of inspired by Bazooka Joe. So there's an actual comic strip on the actual chocolate bar. We partnered with a chocolatier in Brooklyn, kind of a high-end, fancy schmancy chocolatier, and made these very delicious and beautiful chocolate bars. And we had just done them, and I don't know, we were selling them on our website. We were kind of giving.
This is pretty neat. Sorry, I'm going to share my screen.
Yeah,
this
there
is pretty
you go.
Cool.
And we just thought, this is it. It really fits in with. So we made it a tier, but
we're selling them at live shows.
Yeah, we're selling them at live
That's
shows.
Fun. Yeah, that's awesome.
It's something that we're only going to give in New York when we're going to be able to sort of hand deliver it. Because again, sending chocolate in the mail is its own thing. And we also did a coloring book last year for a local neighborhood conference that we had done, and we had been doing coloring pages as part of a Patreon campaign.
Oh,
We
it's this, yeah.
as a coloring book, and we added that in. So we had a lot of little things that we could kind of pull from our, we had just been putting them together.
Yeah.
And the final thing was that when we do shows, we find that people really love John's art cards. So we decided to add, specific sketch cards that were really relevant to our characters, so that people could order those as well. And
That's
those are
pretty
hand drawn, and yeah, we also we basically picked the stuff that people liked.
Sure. Yeah. That's pretty
Actually,
awesome. That's really sweet.
take that off, because I don't think we have any more.
Oh, they sold out of some stuff. Yeah.
Sold out of some of that stuff. The
Cool.
silk screened on the paper. That was something that I was doing. I need to go back and make some more. There's one behind us though.
Those are sweet. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So, like you said, we're both, I mean, I'm a writer, but I'm a creative director in my day job. So I also art direct some of John's stuff, and I have a background of doing different kinds of art. I can't draw at all, but I can do other things.
She drew one comic.
I did try one comic.
Was it the Father's Day?
That's
I think
awesome.
I started it, and then John had
That's
to.
cute.
Well, I cleaned it up a little bit, but I was very excited.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So what inspired both of you? Now I heard some Peanuts from John, but like what kind of got you both into the creative space? Like what really drew you in? Like this is what I want to do for the rest of my life, ideally, or a career path if I could choose it.
That's always a hard question to answer, because I don't really know. I think we both have just always been that this is just always what we did. So I just always knew I wanted to be a creative person. When I was in high school, don't laugh at me, but I played the cello. I did ceramics, and I was a writer. And, I was serious about all three of those things. And there was a point where I decided not to become a ceramicist, because I had this vision that if I became a potter, I would have to move to Vermont, and I didn't want to have. I didn't want to do that. It wasn't like I didn't want to be sitting in a wheel with maple trees. It just wasn't my vibe. I mean, we live in New York City, and so I didn't know. I actually have a very good friend who's a very successful ceramicist, lives in New York, does beautiful things, and didn't have to move to Vermont. But I didn't have that kind of foresight.
I love the catastrophizing of I have to move to Vermont if I have this career path.
Do you live in Vermont? I hope I'm not.
No, I live in Ohio. I would have been even funnier. I wish I was in Vermont right now. That would have been so much better.
It's kind of my worst nightmare. But
sorry, Vermont.
Sorry, Vermont.
Yeah.
Nice for a visit, awesome. Not for a long term.
Not for pottery.
Yeah.
That's awesome. What about you, John?
I always knew I was going to be a writer, and that's what I am.
Well, excuse me. I have always loved comics. Starting with reading the newspaper comics with my mother, and then discovering Mad Magazine, which was a big one for me. Seeing satire, satirizing, to date myself. Back then, it was Watergate, and it would be the only thing that I understood as a little kid about Watergate is that it was on TV all the time and it was boring. But then, I actually got to understand some of it reading parodies in Mad Magazine, but also, they parodied all the movies and TV shows in a way that, Saturday Night Live had not even started yet.
Yeah.
And then, then I discovered superhero comics and bought everything. I didn't think that I was going to do comics. I used to draw comics for kids in my neighborhood, but I didn't think I would do it, because when I was a kid, I thought that comics were just superheroes. And I thought as a teenager that the stories that I wanted to tell are going to be like so important, and meaningful
Mhm.
that, people won't take them seriously if they're comics.
Sure.
Um, uh, I thought I was going to be, I want to mirror like Lisa's like silly story. I wanted to be an architect because because the father on the Brady Bunch was an architect, and I thought he was rich. He's got this big house, and I thought
He for
I'm
sure
never
was.
gonna get married, and I'm never going to have kids, but I'll become an architect. So all that stuff is going to be mine, and I'll be like super rich, you know. But then I told my drafting teachers in high school my plan,
Mhm.
and they laughed at me. And so I, defaulted back to wanting to have an artistic career. But I chose film when I went to college,
Sure.
and I went to film school. But while I was in school, um, comics, the public perception of comics in America changed. Things came out like Mao's and Watchmen,
Oh
and
yeah, yeah,
Frank Miller's all crazy stuff, and Love and Rockets, a big one for
yeah,
me.
yeah.
Um, and I saw that you could do anything in comics. You could talk about real life. You could take real life and add a twist to it, like they did in Love and Rockets. It was like about their neighborhood or an imaginary Mexican town, and it's realistic. But
Yeah.
also, there's dinosaurs if they feel like drawing a dinosaur.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that like blew my mind, and I realized, number one, oh, you can tell any story you want to in comics, and number two, I'm not the kind of person who, like a film person, is very very collaborative. You have to, raise money, and you have to like get a crew together.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
after graduating with a film degree, I realized that that wasn't for me. And being able to do all the things, the costumes and the sets and everything, you could do that in comics.
Yeah, you
So
have to talk to people. That's not one of John's forte. That's where I
That's all right.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. That's all right. So this is your first Kickstarter, I think. How's it gone? What any like insights you can give to folks that want to start their first Kickstarter? Anything you've learned or
I guess we would say it's going very well and we're very grateful. So thank
Yes.
you everybody for your support. But we definitely made a lot of like rookie mistakes.
Sure.
For example, we had no clue that we were supposed to, let people know about the Kickstarter beforehand. We let people know about 2 days beforehand. Apparently,
Yeah.
you're supposed to let people know 2 months beforehand.
Mm.
Um, and so if you're doing a Kickstarter, get it all lined up. And since then I've read that don't worry about having your page really be finished, just, kind of get the word out. So that was, I think, our biggest mistake, if you want to call it that. And other than that, it's just been a lot of, biting the bullet and letting people know. Sometimes it feels a little, what's the word? It's we're sending emails. We're sending emails to people that are on our email list. We're posting on social, and we're really trying to get the word out. But it's sometimes it feels a little bit to me like I'm not trying to be like needy. I'm just like
Sure.
trying to let you know. And
Yeah, yeah. This is available for you if you want it, right? That's all you're doing.
exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like starting the Kickstarter is kind of like starting the comic, or it's like a lot of times as creative people, a lot of creative people hesitate on releasing something. This is something I struggled with my whole life, is kind of being like, this isn't going to be good enough. We're not going to be able to pull this off, whatever. And you hold on to it. I spent many, many years starting projects and not finishing them, or not showing them to anybody. And I like really didn't know what to do with myself as a cartoonist beyond my commercial, like freelance or corporate projects. And when I did my first web comic, which was called Frankenstein Superstar, It was about, and if you're trying to find it, you won't be able to. But
I was trying. Yeah.
you can find it on Webtoon. There's a few
Okay.
on Webtoon, but the bulk of what it was, the website isn't around anymore. But it's something that I wanted to do for like 3 years. I was developing it, sketching and stuff. And while I was working at Nickelodeon, and when I left Nickelodeon, Lisa said, "This is it. You know, you need to like put this out there. You need to like actually do this." And I did, and it was great. Um, Frankenstein Superstar was like a little more visually kind of complicated
Yeah, I
and
believe it.
harder to do as a regularly updating webcomic, along with teaching, which I started to teach at the Kubert School, and also trying to do freelance. It was too much, so it kind of fell by the wayside. I would like to go back to it one of these days. But the point is, with the Kickstarter, with starting a comic, with whatever, getting your art out there, there's a lot of fear that holds you back.
Sure.
But it's been great. The Kickstarter has been very encouraging. I'm looking forward to our next one already.
Yeah. So that's my next question. Do you plan on doing this?
I know we have to get through this one first.
Fix the cover and get this book out.
Yeah. Now, is this everything you've created so far, or was it just like handpicked? Like, and you have like a whole, like, I know you have thousands, right? So like,
it's literally
it's
just the first year. It's only comics.
Got it.
And then we, like we said, we have like over 1,000 comics. So the other books that I'm sort of seeing in my head are more thematic.
Mm-hmm.
We have we have themes of travel, we have themes of mental health issues, we have themes of life and death, and those books are kind of being conceived and gelled. And so that's how I'm envisioning that. I don't think we'll do another chronological one like we did this time. I think afterwards we're going to kind of look at the comics and sort of slice and dice and sort them into those thematics, and probably fill in a little bit of the gaps to extend the storyline, because we were really starting to do that as we were evolving. But even if we're doing 2 or 3 comics a week, it still makes it hard to tell every detail of the story, and I want to make that storyline a little bit more robust.
That's interesting. So if I'm hearing you right, is you have a set things already, but when you create the book, you'll like have additional comics that people will have never seen before.
Yeah,
in there, right? That's a lot of fun. And that might be a lot of fun to do.
There are a few comics that are new in this book as well.
That's what we're doing.
No, I meant I think he was talking about the subsequent
one. The subsequent one.
Have 1 or 2 new ones, because like we said, there's we picked the best of the 300 and something comics from that year, but some of them were a little bit too
of their
time and or just weren't that good,
like you said, coming up with a new idea.
It's hard.
So, but we have more scripts than we have comics, and it's not that I'm a better writer, and John writes many comics too. He's an amazing writer. It's just that it's easier to get a comic script down than it is to
faster.
It's faster.
Okay,
maybe it's not easier, but it seems to be faster to do.
Sure, it's totally fair. Well, when's this one go live? When's the last day to back this project for folks?
It is
March 16th.
March 16th. Cool. All right. Well, folks, please go check out their comic. Please go back it. Anything else before we wrap up that you want to call out? I want to make sure I cover everything you guys want to cover.
No, just please back it. And, the only other thing is that, we're on Instagram, we're on Blue Sky, we're on Medium, all those social platforms. We're very accessible. If you have questions and you want to ask us about either, developing a webcomic or being a creative person, or, or the Kickstarter, please feel free to DM us, reach out to us. We're always happy to answer questions.
Yeah.
Cool. I will put all those links in the description of the video too, so it'll be easier for you to find. Awesome. Well, thank you. It's been wonderful talking with both of you. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so
And,
much for having us.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. See ya.